everyone, and welcome to the Divine Diva, where my guest for today is Brittany. Welcome.
Hello, bonjour from Paris.
Thank you. And I would love for you to introduce yourself and, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yes. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on. It's
Thank you.
an honor just to be able to share like my journey and my message.
Mhm.
I live in Paris, France, and I am a filmmaker and photographer and messaging provocateur.
Mhm.
And I help creative and spiritual entrepreneurs amplify their voice, vision, and visibility so that they
Mhm.
can unlock their most potent expression, experience deep fulfillment, and be paid in their work.
Mhm.
And yeah, I have like a big focus on helping women really like tap into what is their story and the deeper like alchemy that goes on when you're figuring out what it is that you want to share. So like
Mhm.
that deep work and then like the expression of how do I actually put it out there and be very intentional. So,
Mhm. Well, we'll dive a lot deeper into that later on. But first, I would love to know, like, what qualities, in your view, does a Divine Diva have?
ooh, um, a divine diva. I feel like me personally or in general.
Oh, whatever floats your boat, it can be both.
I feel like a divine diva is like someone who's really rooted in her personal power. And as someone who comes from like the film and theater world, like typically diva, we think of someone who's like maybe entitled, or like demanding towards others. But I think when you're in like your divine feminine diva era, it's really about like that new paradigm of leadership, the way that you're communicating, being really rooted in your personal power. And I think just being really like determined on, what your mission is and the work that you're meant to put out in the world.
Hmm. And as you mentioned, you're also a visibility mentor. And why do you think or it can be so difficult for women to really shine their authentic self and let that be seen?
Yeah. I think everyone goes on this journey in their own way, and whether or not like people think that they like sometimes we think the most outspoken leaders don't have visibility fears, but we're always being intentional about like what we share.
Mhm.
And I know when I work behind the scenes with people, like what they're experiencing personally versus the way that they're putting themselves out there can be a disconnect. A lot of what I see with clients are healing mother wounds. So if you had like an overbearing mother, um, a neglectful mother, or a critical mother, then the way that you literally show up in the world is gonna affect your visibility in your business because if you weren't mirrored back like your true essence, then you kind of go around in the world like looking for people to tell you who you are when visibility is about you deciding who you are and showing up that way.
Mhm.
I think another thing around like teach a lot on like the sisterhood wounds and witch wounds. So
Mhm.
really like being seen in your magic. And I don't like to say like, oh, as women, we've been like conditioned to XYZ because I feel like we're really moving out of that space. Like we're doing the work, we're deconditioning from a lot of
Mhm.
like the generational messages that we've received growing up. But ultimately it comes down to belonging and like we want to
Mhm.
feel like we belong. And I guess as someone who's like taught extensively on the witch wounds and understanding community wounds, like there's that fear of being persecuted, of not being accepted or seen for who you are.
Mhm.
And when we mix this into our business and we're being paid for our gifts, like that can bring up a lot around. Um, I know I've experienced this myself, but I've seen it with clients where we can fall into like people pleasing and not like, not wanting to be seen as the confident, badass woman who knows how to manage her finances or
Mhm.
knows how to assert her price because, so it's not just seen like putting yourself out there, but it's being like seen in every aspect of your business. So,
Mhm. And
yeah.
you is being seen the same as being accepted?
No, I think that we can be seen and misunderstood, and I
Mhm.
think we can be seen and be accepted. And what I have learned as someone who had to go through my own journey is that the more I wanted to be seen by others, the less I saw myself.
Mm,
And when I finally stopped caring about what other people think,
mhm,
that's really when you tap into that level of just like inner freedom.
mhm,
And you actually, like, once you transcend that, you really don't care what people think. And I know, like, in the earlier years of my business, it was like, it was so hard just to even show up on live,
right.
like, even just to write a post on social media. And I used to help women in that space. Now I show up and say like whatever the F I want. And like, so I'm in a very different phase.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean I still don't have moments where I'm like, oh gosh, should I say this? Like, so that there's like levels of it. It's kind of like peeling back an onion for sure.
Mhm. And do
Yeah.
you also sense that there's a shift happening in women are seeking each other's company and strengthening each other more instead of being competitive?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's kind of like, I feel like different waves of entrepreneurship, and like I've been in the online space for over a decade, so I see a lot of the women now that I started out with in 2014 who are like, we've really healed those community wounds. But then I do still see a wave of people who have either been, hurt by other women in the context of like leadership, mentorship, coaching, and that will continue on forever because we're human and, you know,
Mhm.
we're
Yeah.
not all masters of communication. But I definitely see women more like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like when I've ever been in that competitive space. I don't think I felt that so much in the online space, but I
Mhm.
also don't vibe around people like that. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I very like if I don't vibe with someone, then I just don't get in those spaces. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that because in this like spiritual business, personal growth space, like we're doing the work
Mhm.
versus maybe someone who's like in corporate and they haven't had leadership training, within the employees, like I'm sure there's still a lot of competitive toxicity
Right.
in the workplace.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
And I checked, of course, I did my research and I saw on your Facebook page that you mentioned that your work as a filmmaker and photographer isn't a service, but a relationship and co-creation. And I would love
Yeah.
to know, why is that difference so essential?
So that was a post where I was like, oh my God, should I say this?
Yes,
Yeah,
you should.
and it was super recent. I guess that's just my own personal philosophy, and this is not going to resonate with everyone because obviously, to an extent, like there are services that we offer and we exchange money for that service. And I think for me, like film and photography has always been a form of art. And so I look at it more of like I'm being commissioned to co-create and bring forward a vision with that client, which is different than someone who's just paying you
Mhm.
to go off and like do a thing. Because I think, um, and this is sort of like a newer, I guess, conversation that I've been in lately, just around like service provider
Mhm.
and the way that women have been taught to self-sacrifice through service.
Right.
Just in the nature of women being, nurturing and caring and, so some of those parallels there. But yeah, I really, there's tons of people who do film and photography, and I'm very particular about who I work with, and I want to
Mhm.
make sure that we're, bringing together a vision and that they're not just like, oh, can you go and film this thing for me?
Right,
Because
right.
I could do that for the sake of making money, but that's not what lights me up.
Mhm.
Uh,
Right.
so that was
And I
my
think it's
current,
also like the energy behind those
yeah.
words that set an intention for what you do.
Yeah, yeah, like it's the energy, but like the difference between co-creation versus like service.
Right.
Um, and I feel like this like younger generation, this younger wave of like female entrepreneurs, like we're waking up to that versus like when I work with clients who are a bit older, like kind of right below the baby boomer
Mhm.
generation. It's like it's all about service and self-sacrifice, and like I notice a huge shift in attitude when I work with different generations of women. And I don't know, I'm bringing the millennial, like my millennial vision, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Go millennials.
yeah. Yeah.
And I would love to know also, why is telling our story and reclaiming our voice so important?
Yeah. I mean, I think that our story, first and foremost, really is a roadmap, and it's our experience. It's the way that we have experienced something and gained insight, and then we're sharing that with someone for a reason, for a purpose. And I think a lot of times online, people don't understand that, like, you're not really sharing your story for yourself, you're sharing it so that your audience can see themselves within it.
Mhm.
And it's like, I think because I've been trained in theater and film, and so I studied story and understanding like the purpose of it and how to actually, move someone. Like, how do you inspire? How do you move someone? And I know when I listen to podcasts, like even like this, there's always something, there's like a code, there's something that you hear someone say that unlocks something for you,
Mhm.
right? Obviously, then if you choose to hire and work with that person, then that's you're going to dive deep into it, but you can hear someone's story and be like, oh my gosh, like this has just opened up a new way of seeing something. And I
Mhm.
think that's what's so powerful. um what else was I going to say? There was something else
Like
you said.
reclaiming your voice.
And reclaiming your voice, yeah. um I always say that I just have like a radar for people like speaking their truth, and I can really feel like energetically when someone is not speaking their truth. Like I can feel their resistance or their self-censorship, and that can be triggering for people. Like I don't know if you're into human design or anything,
Mhm.
but like I have the 5-1 line, so
Oh,
it's
right.
kind of annoying because my 5 line triggers people because I just see things that they are not ready to see.
Right.
But I don't think it does the world a service to water down our voice. It's like
Mhm.
you kind of just have to get to this like, moment, like similar to what I said at the beginning, where it's like you just don't care because you don't care what other people think, because you have something important to say and it's going to land with the right people.
Mhm.
And you like need to accept and expect that not everyone's going to resonate with it. Because of
Mhm.
course, like there's how many billions of people on the planet, like,
Yeah.
and it's like it doesn't have to be like multiple truths can coexist at the same time. And I
Mhm.
think when people recognize that, then they're more free in using their voice because they're not afraid of being in um like conflicting
Right.
viewpoint opinions. And
Mhm.
I I don't know if the world has fully understood that, but
Yeah.
um, I know in my work, like I like to help my clients understand that and then like really ground into the safety, because it's one thing to just say this and be like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, just go and say the most controversial thing, but you have to like somatically feel that in your body and create that sense of safety. And
Yeah.
I think everyone can relate with putting their voice out there and it not being well received. And
Mhm.
then your throat dries up or your heart is beating or you're anxious or having like my visibility fears were so intense that I would have panic attacks. So
Mhm.
when I say all of this, like I don't mean to gloss over like, oh, it was so easy for me. Like I
Mhm.
literally used to have panic attacks just
Right.
like, to be seen, to even um this is like a minor example, but even being in a foreign country speaking a second language, like it was hard for me to like if I was at a restaurant and the waiter and had to call over the waiter, like
Mhm.
it was so hard for me to like get my voice out. Like
Mhm.
I used to speak, I'd open my mouth and no sound would come out. So, like, yeah.
But how did you go from that to this?
Um, well, I worked with a voice coach many years ago. I, again, the fact that I'm a trained actor definitely helped because I've learned different tools and techniques. But I It started in 2020 when I really looked at like the mother wound and how that was affecting my ability to show up and run my business. And I always tell this story, but I couldn't afford to be broke anymore. I
Mhm.
couldn't afford to not make money in my business. And so that was something that really pushed me over the edge. And just for some context on that, like obviously live in France. It's not my native country, and so I have a residency permit, and so I couldn't just go and get a job. I
Mhm.
didn't have like I had to make my business work, so I had
Right.
to move through these things. So I worked with a I worked with a voice coach, so like technical like techniques to move through like tone, fear, I don't know, pace, rhythm, all of that. And I think that like deep down, I always wanted to be visible. So when I unlocked that, it was kind of
Mhm.
like, um, there's this really famous quote, and it says like, once a woman speaks her truth, like everything else that comes out of her mouth is a riot, or something
Mhm.
like that. Because it's like, once you feel that high of like speaking and being heard, a lot of those fears like disintegrate because you
Mhm.
realize like, oh, it is safe. People are listening to me and I'm making an impact. And it's it's through the doing, I would
Mhm.
say, more than anything. So if
Right.
anyone listening has visibility fears, like you can do your EFT tapping and you can meditate and you can do all of that beautiful stuff,
Mhm.
but you get used to it and then you build your capacity, you build your muscle. And um yeah, just like slowly over time, I just got
Mhm.
better and better at speaking. And now it's like I don't have, you know,
Mhm.
any apprehensions anymore.
Mm. And I think it also has to do, at least for me, when I started a podcast like 3 years ago, I thought, okay, just do it. Take the first step. There's no such thing as like perfect. Just do it and grow as you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
we have
mean,
the
that's
tendency to have that perfectionism drive us and like, oh my gosh, it's not perfect. So I'm just gonna not release it or not do this live or but
yeah.
there's no need to be perfect.
Yeah, when I think too, like, so I had the opportunity to speak on stage in front of hundreds of women. And so that was a different visibility fear.
Mm.
Like, let me tell you, one thing to like go on live or go on Zoom, but standing on stage in front of 200, 300 women, I did a talk 2 years ago and it went really well.
Mhm.
And I spoke on stage in November of this year, and it was not my finest. Like,
Oh.
I was not in a good headspace. And I'm obviously critical of myself around that, but like, guess what? That doesn't define me.
Mhm.
I don't have to carry that story into every public speaking thing that I do
Mm.
afterwards. It's like you're saying, you don't, not every time it has to be perfect. Like, if
Right.
you think of artists on stage and the amount of concerts that they do,
Mhm.
and if you're ever like scrolling on social media and you see those little memes where, like, I don't know, their mic fell or there's some
Right.
technical error, like that stuff happens all the time.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's
But
just part
some
of the
that like that weighs a lot harder on us than say you did it like 10 perfect times, like perfect, of course, but and then
yeah.
one mistake, and that mistake is always the one that weighs heavier and that plays like a
Yeah.
broken record in your mind. So that's a
Yeah.
tricky thing, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
for sure.
And I would love to know, like when you're with a client and you're at like a photo shoot or you film something for their brand, how do you tap into their energy to feel what
Mm.
needs to be seen?
So if I'm working with them through like consulting, mentorship, or coaching, I think it's really doing like a somatic tune in to like what's coming up, what they're feeling in their body. At the same time, I'm very psychic intuitive. And so like as a clairsentient and a claircognizant, it's sometimes hard to describe, but I can just feel like something.
Hmm.
So then I'll, obviously use like the coaching and mentorship tools to bring that to light without just being like, oh, you're blocked on this kind of thing, because people are not receptive to that. So yeah, I would say it's more of like an intuitive process of like weaving it out and really understanding like, okay, where is that coming from and what do we need to like alchemize or heal within that so that we can then like, you know, ultimately move into the next step or whatever their desired result is, right?
Mhm.
Um, And if it's in the context of like film or photography, it's very um it's feeling again, but it's more so like this will translate through their body language, so that the way that they're holding themselves,
Mhm.
um, even the way that they're like moving. And so sometimes like I will, get them to move in a certain way, like get like that flow and that energy.
Mhm.
And it's in those moments when you can just capture like their pure essence. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, laugh, and then they'll laugh, but it's not like a genuine laugh. So
Mm.
um, sometimes like I'll talk, so we'll just be conversing and they'll have a genuine laugh and I'll capture that. And I definitely do a lot of, mood boards and just get really clear on like what is the essence, what is it that you're wanting to bring through and capture. And so much of that can be done like in the mise en scène, which I don't think there's an English word for that, but like kind of setting up the shot. Like, what's your posture? What's your body language? What are you wearing? Where are you? Like, how can we tell that story? Um, and it's been really incredible to hear women's feedback, because they'll say like they've seen themselves in a new light.
Mm.
And that for me is just like one of the most fulfilling parts for sure.
Mm. And as someone who helps women to share their story, what part of your story was once hidden for a long time?
Oh my God.
If you want to share, of
That's
course.
a good question. Um, I think actually, ironically, as someone who like taught women to share their story, like I think there was a lot of my story that I never shared.
Mhm.
Like I wouldn't use it in my marketing, because storytelling is natural and innate for people, but unless you sit down and really weave out like what am I trying to say? Like
Mhm.
I wasn't doing that for myself. And so I think the biggest parts of my story that I wasn't sharing was just around like healing from generational trauma and abuse. That was, you know, because that doesn't have anything to do with like business and spiritual mentorship per se. And yet it does,
Mhm.
because a lot of the women that come to me, I would say, if not all of them, all in some way, shape, or form say that they never felt safe to speak their truth or be themselves.
Mhm.
And that could be from trauma themselves, it could be from bullying, it could be from abuse, it could, be from all of these different things. And so if I don't share that part of my story, which is really like, I'm so good at helping people through that because I've been through it. So if I don't share that, then I'm not good, because there's tons of visibility
Mhm.
coaches out there who might just focus on like surface level, like how do you tangibly show up?
Right.
And there's a need for that, but yeah, I think that my part, my the part I wasn't sharing was just around, I guess, like that deep pain that I had around just not being accepted, experiencing the bullying and the abuse. And that's really truly why it was so hard for me
Mhm.
to be visible, because showing up for me felt like death. I felt like I was going to be killed. I felt like I was going to be ridiculed. And like that was my experience growing up. So, when women have fear, like it's sometimes when people say like, oh, your fear is not real. And I really don't like when people say that, because if you have a fear, it is rooted in a somatic truth.
Mhm.
And you
It's
can
real for
shift,
you.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's real for you. Like,
Mhm.
and you can feel that. And so it's like you have to know how to alchemize that and move through that. Because if you just say to someone, oh, we'll just show up anyways, it's like, well, if your body feels like you're going to be killed, then you're simply, no mindset hack is going to push you through that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Mhm. And how do you protect your energy as someone who's can read and feel energy? So how do you protect yourself?
That has been a big journey.
Mhm.
That has not been easy. I think doing my own practices around just like energetic hygiene, and really recognizing that like what's mine is mine and what's theirs is theirs, and that I'm not here to save my clients. And I
Mhm.
had to learn that the hard way, because I, you know, growing up, like was looking to be saved. And so there's that natural tendency in me to like want to help and save people. And I had to realize that by doing that, I am stripping my clients of their own sovereignty.
Hmm.
And when I looked at it that way, I was like, wow, yes, exactly. I have to trust that my clients can be in their personal power.
Hmm.
And I was not treated that way growing up. I had to learn how to step into my personal power. But if we treat people like victims, then they're going to stay in that role.
Hmm.
And so we have to like help elevate them, and that's a whole other conversation on like
Hmm.
victimhood versus, sovereignty and all of that. But yeah, that was definitely a big thing for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I learned that same lesson because I think as like light workers, healers, people with a spiritual nature to help others, we want to like solve their problems. And when
Yeah,
I heard that quote saying, as a healer, you don't help others heal, you give them the tools to help heal themselves.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's also essential for us as those healers to like protect ourselves. Yeah, you don't have to heal everyone.
Yeah.
We
Well, and
can't
it
heal
goes like,
everyone.
even if I put myself like in when I'm being mentored by someone, if they just give me the answer, then I don't get to explore like what is my truth?
Right.
How do I find my path? Like how do I develop emotional intelligence and conflict resolution if someone's just always telling me like it, and that's where you really do find your personal power, because then you know in the future like I got this. I can handle anything that comes my way, and
Mhm.
it obviously takes a lot of work to get to that point. I did not have this. Like, this is like in the past 2, 3 years. So it's very
Mhm.
recent for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and my last question is always the same, and that is, when do you feel most divine?
Ooh.
Mhm.
Um, I feel most divine when I am really just in a laid back, flowy, like when I'm just being, when I'm in
Mhm.
presence. Like if I had a moment this morning where I was sitting by my window and the sun was like beaming on my back, and I just felt this like glimmer of happiness of like,
Mhm.
what a beautiful moment to just be like sunbathing by my Parisian window. Like I just
Mhm.
felt like so at peace.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brittany, for sharing your wisdom with us.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about this. And none of this is pre-planned, so I'm like responding in the moment. And yeah, I really like enjoyed these questions, and I'm so excited to share this with people.
Thank you so much. Thank you.